Marina, thank you so much for being here and having such an important conversation about this because yeah, you're the first person that I talked to that's inherited wealth. And yeah, and I'd love to just start with your story. Tell me what that whole process was for you.
Wow. Well, it's been a process actually. And I inherited 15 years ago. Well, actually, probably a little bit further back because I still inherited some money when my father was still alive. But the big chunk came after he died. And then I inherited a little bit more after my mother passed away as well. And so, um, I, you know,
Can I stop you for a second?
yeah,
Was it six figures, multi six figures? Because that matters, right? It's kind of like
it was seven.
receiving seven figures. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was seven figures. And so it was a big chunk, life changing, but also not enough to last me if and when, if it wasn't done properly, right? So I never had any experience with managing anything wealth wise, because
What
I
was
didn't
your
need to.
financial education prior to that?
Zero.
Zero. So
I
your
had
so your father, even though he had amassed this wealth, he didn't sort of like teach you how to, yeah, okay.
nothing. Nothing. So I wasn't prepared. But I wasn't prepared financially. I wasn't prepared emotionally. I wasn't prepared. Full stop. And I had never taken an interest in any of that world. I was, my identity was spiritual and my identity was, fun loving. My identity was free spirit. My identity was love for everybody, and it was definitely not spreadsheets, investments. That all seemed really like hard, not interested in that at all. In fact, I worked in I actually decided to work in the music industry. So that really reflected the type of person that I was, creative, artistic, doing the world a service by selling music to the world. And but at the same time, I always had this kind of sense of give me the role and I'll run with it. And every role I had and every role I was given was very much like that. It was like I would put my energy and time into making the business money, and I did very well. Um, so I knew how to make money for somebody else, and investing is a whole different ballgame. Managing assets is a whole different ballgame. And I didn't know anything about that. I knew how to make other people money, but none of the other bits.
Can I ask you, Marina, did you know that it was coming?
I did.
Okay. And
And
did he talk to you about like this much is gonna come to you? And this is like what
yeah,
was the extent of that conversation?
I knew what was coming because we'd looked at the will. My family were very much like, oh, you don't never have to worry about money, you're going to inherit. That was pretty much the narrative. You're never
Uh,
going to have to worry about money, you're rich. And I was like, yeah, cool, excellent. Woohoo! Whoa. It's a bit like buying a house and not realizing that you're going to have to keep it up. Like it's a bit
mm,
like um, falling in love and not realizing that you may have to do some of the work. It was very sort of naive on my part. So I thought I've landed the Holy Grail. I am in the business of now being a rich woman in the world. But my identity was not that. So the inheritance landed, and I was still the free spirit, the I'm not interested in the financial world. In fact, I fired my dad's advisor for no other reason than I don't need you. And then with retrospect, I realized that he was also charging me 5% a year.
wow.
So, but that wasn't the reason why I fired him. I fired him because I didn't want somebody telling me what to do.
Mm-hmm. Rebel.
Well, yeah, maybe slightly entitled, and really thinking that I knew what I was doing when I really did not. And so there were quite a few moments during that time, during this 15-year journey so far, that some things caught my attention. Like this one time where I was selling a home, selling a house in the UK. I was living in Spain, but I had the house hadn't sold yet, and I couldn't pay my bills. So at that point, I didn't explain it like this, but I can explain it now. I was asset rich and cash poor. Now, I didn't
Mm,
understand that that was even a thing. I just knew. I was like, hang on a second, how can I have all this wealth and not have any cash? Hmm, that's a bit of a problem. And
mm,
so what I discovered, it was so funny because life throws you things your way. And I'd been seeing this woman talk about wealth and talk about money and talk about private, and talk about investing, etc. And I was like, she knows something that I don't. Maybe I should do her course. So I did. And wow, that was such an eye-opener and a game changer for me because I actually threw myself into I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to throw myself in.
mm,
So the first experience of this was really understanding what goes in and out. I didn't know. Like I was like, oh, money comes in, money goes out, money goes in, money goes out. And I had no understanding of what my expenses were or what I was paying for or where the money went or anything. And so I actually did. I sat myself down for 2 weeks and I went, right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this properly. And I went, I'm going to do a year's worth of accounts. And so that's what I did. I threw myself in. I did a year's worth of accounts and I went, fuck me, is that what I spent on that? Oh my God. Huh. Well, that is interesting. And so the knowledge started that way.
yeah, yeah. How many years in were you when you sat down and did that year's worth of accounting?
It's a really great question. I inherited back in 2012. So that must have been 2016.
Okay.
So for 4 years, I was really winging it. But
And
I
and
had
in
money.
those 4 years, like, okay, like I just want to go back for a second because I'm I'm sure the like whoever's listening is thinking the same thing I am. Like, okay, you get this lump sum. What is the first thing you do? Like this lands in your account. What's the first thing you do?
Well, I decided to go to Bali for 6 weeks. And you know why? Because I realized that my father was no longer going to be calling me up and saying, when are you getting a proper job?
Ah, okay.
I realized that I was living in London because I was doing it for him. And what I realized is that I hadn't really asked myself the question, what do I really want? And I was like, I don't need to be here anymore. And it was
Mm,
such an eye opener for me of how much of what I'd been doing was to try and please him. Um, and try and it was all very unconscious. And so I decided to go to Bali for 6 weeks and practice yoga, free spirit, hugging trees, you know. And but at the same time I was also coaching. So I then decided to buy a property, actually. Um, buy a home, and that's the home I bought, which I then sold later.
okay.
So I bought property with it. I probably also signed up to many courses. I probably did that too. Um, but yeah, I bought a property, then I bought another property. So property for me had always been sort of an obvious choice.
Yeah.
Um, but never because I was doing it as an investment, only because I was wanting to go and live there.
Okay, got it. Okay. Yeah.
So, I know now that that's probably not the best way to choose your investments, but it was how I was doing it back then. And then, so that was kind of a massive eye opener for me. And what then transpired was once I'd kind of got the all-round education. And I worked with her for about s- 2015, 16 to 2020. And then
Wow.
we stopped
Okay.
working together. Yeah, I went on and did her gourmet level, her sort of mastermind group for a couple of years. And it was so interesting because I always felt that I was the least confident in the room.
Hmm.
And I couldn't understand why. I'd started to chase the income. So it's really only been in the last year that I've really made sense of my journey because I really did not understand what was going on for me at the time. Because here I was being told that I was financially free, but not living like I was.
Yeah.
There was a disconnect between my inner and outer reality, and I couldn't understand because I knew logically that that was the case, but my body didn't. And I lived like I wasn't like that. So what would happen? I
What
chased
would
the
What did you experience in your body? What was for you the disconnect? Like, what was the sensations and the experience internally versus what was external?
I just didn't feel safe.
What was the not safety saying?
It was almost this hypervigilance of like, once I have the income, then I'll be fine. It was all around income.
Ah, okay. So not making income felt very just kind of like uncomfortable or like things
And you
could
know
be.
what's really interesting is that I was making income, but I wasn't matching it to what was going out.
Okay.
So the income that I was making from the business, but then there was income that I was using from my assets. And there was this fear that the pot would run out.
Yeah.
So there was this constant toing and froing of chasing the income, chasing the income, chasing the income, chasing the income. Logically, that makes sense, right? On a balance, on an income statement, that makes sense. Oh, I don't have enough coming in. Go and make the income somewhere else. Okay, so that
Mhm.
was. But the
Yeah.
challenge with this was that where was that energy coming? What was the energy that I was in to do that?
Yes. Right. The energy
So there
behind
is
it.
the logic behind it, and then there is how you are with the logic behind it. So I realized over time that a lot of this was coming from I need to prove my worth, that I can make my own money.
Hmm.
Okay, so there was that going on. I need to
Yeah.
prove to the world that I can make my own money. Um, and of course, what happened is I was surrounding myself with women that were making shit ton of money with business. And so suddenly what was happening is the rags to riches story of from zero to a million, from zero to a million, from zero to a million, from zero to a million. And I'm like sitting there going, oh, that's not my story. I went from a million to a million and now I'm trying to make a business work and it's not working. I have no value. I have no value. I have no value to bring to the world because I that's not my story. That is what I basically convinced myself of. Like,
Okay.
I need to have the income so that. And you know what's crazy is that I kept my reality was I owe my estate. I owe my estate. My estate. I'm taking money from the estate. I know need to put it back.
Mm. Wow.
And it felt really real to me.
Yeah.
That was the reality I was in. So I was chasing the income. I was trying to put the money back. And what was happening was is I would invest in risky deals because once I had the money, once I had the income, then I would be fine.
Okay. Okay. Yes.
But now I see that actually, from a tax perspective, income isn't actually very, um, it's actually not very efficient. I now know that having your capital grow is a form of income, but you don't necessarily have it in a, and so I, of course, was in an income generating reality for most part. 100K months, 100K year, whatever it was all about, and those are the messages. And I was like, well, that must be.
So you were
And
like
so,
chasing those goals.
yeah,
Yeah.
thinking that that's how I would be safe because I felt
Mhm.
so unsafe, but I didn't realize how unsafe I was feeling because I wasn't allowing myself to really feel them because I was constantly working or chasing the next thing and so what would happen is my investment choices were reflected by the state of angst I was in.
So the
When my
high risk type of investments.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And there's nothing wrong with that if you don't put all of your money in.
exactly. Yeah, to diversify enough.
To diversify, but also like if you're called to, if there's a I see now the energetic of this so differently because I can see the transformation that I've been through. And from where I went to hit that, hitting the million by actually having that really like the the really risky investment. Once I make the money back from that investment, then I'll be okay, right? And it was bullshit because I was trying to solve an inner thing with an outer thing, and that never, ever, ever works. And so you think it's the thing, but it's not. It's where am I making these decisions from that I had to look at.
Mhm.
But because I was numbing myself out with alcohol most of the time, because I was keeping busy so that I wouldn't have to feel it, um, I just didn't understand the dynamic I was in until I had to look. And
What made you have to look?
so it was 2020. I stopped working with my mentor. She decided she didn't want to do one-to-one work anymore. And um, I started to feel really unsafe. And so what I realized was that she had become a security blanket for me.
Mm,
I would go to her, what do I do? Like, how do I do it? It was constantly out, out,
yeah.
out, out. And, I was teaching a lot about inner wisdom, right? So, interestingly enough, this was an area that definitely wisdom did not exist. As far as I was concerned, this was an exception, right?
Yeah.
Right? So it's just like, no, wisdom does not exist here. It only exists in these areas. But it was such a blind spot for me. Anyway,
Yeah.
I then I lived in this beautiful villa. It was I would just it's absolute paradise. We bought it at a really incredible price. The prices had shot up here. And COVID hit. I went into a massive emotional experience with my ex-husband, and I decided to take some time out. I moved out of the villa and I rented it out. It brought in the money, and then it covered the rental for this apartment I was in and some. And then I was trying to do things logically. So I looked at the return on investment of the villa and I was like, nah, it's not really returning what I need. What I'm going to do is this and this and this and this and this stuff. Now, logically speaking, it made sense. But the decision was made from a place of thinking that the outside could actually calm down my nervous system. And I see it so clearly now, but back then I'd convinced myself that that wasn't the case. I convinced myself, no, this makes perfect sense.
Hmm.
But the villa wasn't an asset for me as an investment per se. Yes, in capital growth. Yes, in terms, but it was my heart space. It was a place that I just felt so good in and I felt so excited to live in, but I completely discarded that. So when I decided to sell
Um,
it, I cried every day. And I went through with it because I said I would. And I undersold. And then I couldn't find anything. And then I bought this other place that I didn't really like. And I wanted to do a refurb. The refurb went tits up. I lost more money by this whole transaction. And I went into huge depression because I was like, how can I have been so blind to this? And it was, but that experience is what brought me here. So I'm really grateful
Almost
now. Like
like the heartbreak, like it was like you were
it was
that
massively
you in
heartbreaking
the
for me.
house, right? That was like that felt like a partnership, and when that broke up, there was like a reckoning.
Massive reckoning. I had to question everything.
Wow.
Where did I make that decision from? What was that really about? At the same time, I decided to move. I decided to do a year-long program at Container um, called Medicine, and it was brutal. It brought up so much for me while I was journeying with all of this at the same time.
Mm.
And it was just one gauntlet after the other of and it was almost like the ring of fire, the catalyst, the peace.
Yeah.
Um, and I learned so much from that experience, but it was the making of me actually. It was the that I cannot keep doing this to myself anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me, Marina, when you mentioned that you were drinking, you were not wanting to feel. What is it that you weren't wanting to feel?
The
Can you?
fear, I used to scare myself stupid with with my investing and my this isn't going to go right. I mean, the crazy thing was when I sold the villa, I moved into this doer-upper, um, and I lost sight of one investment. I thought it disappeared, but I was just making a whole bunch of shit up most of the time that wasn't true. And there was the CEO was very vocal about um, the dissolution of a company that he'd invested in, and kept grabbing my attention. And I thought maybe I need to look at this investment. I haven't been on the platform for years. Don't know, maybe. So I went on, but I couldn't get on. I mean, there was a whole palaver about verification. It took me about 6 months to get in the end. And I looked at the I looked at the I looked at the number that was sitting on the platform and I went, what the fuck? How much? And so we've been given a dividend back in 2021, and it was unbeknownst to me because I'd been living in my own kind
Yeah.
of fake reality, right? Been lying to myself about how this asset had disappeared and about I don't know what's going on with it. But no, we've been given some Bitcoin and some ETH and done very, very well out of it. And so I was sitting there in this doer-upper going, what the fuck? The fuck has just happened? I've sold my beautiful space to come here because I didn't think. And it was just one of those moments where I was like,
Yeah.
I can't keep doing this to myself anymore, and I am not going to keep doing this to myself anymore. And so I I started to actually go deeper into the whole domain of trust and um, my heart's desires and what do I really want and my
Yeah.
truth and all of that. And we were working with archetypes at the time. And the archetype that kept coming through was the Empress. And actually, I now see why. But I worked with her and she taught me a lot about trust and faith and abundance and surrender and maturity, really, because I had to grow up a lot around this aspect and take hold and lead and become the steward that I think I had. It felt like such a huge burden and responsibility on my part that I kept abdicating my role. And so to not have to feel it, to not have to deal with it, oh, it's better that it's not there. And it's interesting because um my partner he just sees people. And I remember, what was it, about 3 years ago now? We were coming back from a investment conference, and I was saying, I want to go back to coaching. I'm a coach. And he goes, right, Marina, can we just have a moment, please? You don't make any money from coaching. You make your money from your assets. So why are you calling yourself a coach and not an investor? And honestly, it was such a game-changing conversation for me because what I heard in that was, I am an investor. I just haven't owned it. And I would never lead with that, ever. It was like, oh yeah, and because there was so much shame around the things that didn't go well. How can I
Hmm.
call myself an investor when I've lost money? That how can I call myself an investor when um I'm not doing so well? How can I call myself? I mean, there's a whole bunch of shit around that identity that
Right,
I
like there's like a perfection piece around like all
this is what
the
an investor looks like. This is what a really like successful investor looks like. And Sunny didn't look like me. But that conversation had a massive ripple effect in my system. And I started to see how um, my wealth moved from being something over here. It was kind of here,
yeah,
like
yeah,
over there in the attic, in a box, collecting dust,
kind of
to
separate.
whoop, front and center of my life. And that was really crazy. It was like, what the fuck just happened? And then him and I had another conversation. And he said to me, if you spend more time in the domain of investing versus in the domain of coaching, blah, 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 you'd make a hell of a lot more money.
Oh,
And I sat there and I went, well, first of all, I was a bit angry. I was like, ugh. And then I was like, fuck, he's right. So I didn't have to spend thousands of pounds on it. I just have my partner who tells me how it is because he can see it.
right, right.
And so that really shifted some things for me. It rearranged a whole bunch of stuff. And I went from living in this sort of constant fear that the money would run out, that it's a finite pot, that it's something that I have to preserve, that it's something that I have to living from a place of desire.
Okay. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Like when when the money went from being over here, like somewhat distanced from you, and like kind of like almost like landed in your lap front and center. What what did that feel like to have it be
So
front and
fucking
center?
so fucking empowering and so powerful. It was where it was almost like the Empress has landed. Like she's right here. She's taken the reins of this now.
Okay,
And
you felt more in control.
it wasn't even that. It was more like I can now see how I can lead this in the way that I
Okay.
want to.
Okay.
And um, I had joined an investment club. I was surrounding myself with people that were investing. I had a very empowering conversation with a lady last year about my journey, and she goes, "Oh, yeah, that's so normal." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Yeah,
Wow.
women who inherit, they go through this." And I went, "I didn't even know that." So
Wow.
then, so then, that's kind of where I landed with this, holding the
Yeah.
wealth, being able to, because one of the things that happened with the house and the doer-upper was really magical, actually. I went and helped my partner um, move. He bought this property when I moved into the other one because he realized that the property that he was in was not his future, and he decided he wanted to buy another space. And he moved into the space. He'd taken like 6 months to move in, right? He bought it but hadn't moved in. And I'm like, we need to get you up moving into that because this place is fucking gorgeous. It has a beautiful view of the valley. And I said, you got to put a date. So we put a date in, we moved him in, and I was sitting there looking at this incredible view of pine trees and valleys and I just suddenly saw and I went, this is what I want.
Mm.
This is what I want. I don't want to live where I am anymore. Not that I ever wanted to live there anyway. I'm done. And so what that did was opened up my curiosity about what was going on in the market. I was like, I don't have the money to buy anything at the moment because it's all tied up in that house and I need to wait for the license to come through, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I was like, let me just see what's available. And this space that I currently live in was available. So I came to see it, and it was like this incredible view of the mountain, like green. I can see the ocean from here, from my living room. And I went, fucking hell. Like, but I don't have the money right now to pay for it. And so suddenly in that conversation with the estate agent, what came out of my mouth was like, would he be willing to do a rent to buy? And the estate agent was, I don't know. And rent to buys here are non-existent. So basically, um, you get to live in the space, you pay monthly, it goes towards the buying of the space, right? That's how they work. And you can do from 2 up to 5 years. We did a 2 year deal. And he said yes.
Incredible.
He said yes. And I went, fuck. Shit, he said yes. So it was this moment of like, okay, so let me do the deal. And so I said, look, if I sell this property and then buy this one within the year, would you then take X amount off? He said yes. And I said, if you have to wait for 2 years, I get it. I'll buy it at the price it is right now. That feels like a fair deal to me. And he said, sure, okay. Anyway, I bought it within the year. The other place sold. I sold it to a guy that, because my desire for that house was to have somebody see it like I did. She needed a lot of work and would take care of her and so what I realized in all of this experience was when I focused on what I wanted, when I focused on my desires, when I focused on it just manifest.
Mm.
And what I've discovered since is that the money shows up. It has to. It has to. It just fucking has to. It's law. And for me, that shifted the entire restriction piece. It just took it off the
Wow.
table.
Wow. I love that. I feel like this I need to like pause for a second here. Right? Because you just like dropped a bomb right now. And I've heard that before. I've heard people say when you follow your desires, the money shows up, right? It's kind of like part of money magic. But hearing you say that in the context of all of this other stuff where, you could have pulled money out of investment, you could have made it happen. Like you could have gotten scrappy and, pulled money out of different places to put towards this house. But the way that it happened was much more delicious and miraculous.
Bingo. And so I've been exploring the domain of desires for the last 2 or 3 years and have gone deep into this. And I've played around with it. And I've seen it time and time again, time and time again, time and time again, time and time again. And I've realized now that a lot of the women who inherit felt like me. Um, they feel like what they've been given is a finite pot. But I'm like, don't it's not finite. The little mind will go there. Like it's finite. This is what I've got. I mean, that's like holding a gun to your head. It's to say that
Mm.
that's the only bit that's left, and I've got to make sure I preserve it, versus going, this resource was given to me because I'm here to do something with it. Either invest it, either use it so that I can actually go off and impact and do something to impact the world in that way,
Yeah.
or something else. But ultimately, it what I've seen is that when women land wealth or an inheritor lands wealth, it doesn't mean that they are the person to lead it in that moment.
Yeah.
Um, there is an identity lag that happens.
So
There is the
they
person
have
that
to
in
become the steward.
they have to become the steward. And so how do you become the steward? And so this is where my work has gone. I've now, like a couple of weeks ago, a framework landed for me, just literally landed. It's like, huh? Um, and so it has nothing to do with wealth. It has everything to do with her relationship to
Mhm.
um, emotional safety, speaking her truth, her boundaries, her trust in life, her authentic desires, and her power. And each of those are her initiation. But ultimately, when she comes from self-numbing to self-soothing, from suppressing her truth to authentic expression, to um, not trusting and living in doubt and thinking she's got to do it all on her own, to a deep trust in life and surrender. This piece around authentic desires, this she moves from restriction into allowing and receiving fully. And then finally, this power piece, which is the responsibility side, which is I abdicate, but now I delegate. I'm in partnership here.
Mhm.
I call the shots. I choose. So when she aligns to the sort of the
Yes.
journey from A to B, we're now really in contact with the Empress. We're now really in contact with her reclamation of her own power, of her own sovereignty. And that
Yeah.
was the framework that I was waiting for. And it just dropped in the
Mm.
other day, and I went, oh my God, this is great. I love it. Thank you. Because that's the journey I've been on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to go back for a moment because you mentioned having this fear of the money, that the money was going to run out. And so I'm curious as to what's the story that you were holding about the money running out? What would that mean about you if the money ran out?
It's a really great question. And it wasn't my story.
It wasn't yours.
No, but I was holding it as if it was. It was my father's.
Mm,
The way
hmm.
he did money, the way he did his life. I
Yeah.
mean, oh my God. This story comes up, and I obviously because it needs to be shared. My mother didn't come from wealth, but she was so abundant in the way that she lived, and she just couldn't understand my father. It's like he'd walk around in holey jumpers and holes in his underwear, and why would I want to? It really didn't matter. And to her, it was just like, dude, get yourself sorted in that. Like, please, it's your for your own self like worth or whatever. Anyway, she donated money, she did a lot of giving. So I was brought up in a really, like you can imagine, two completely different worlds.
Yeah.
Father, staunch conservative, commander of the Navy, war, all of that, because he was a lot older than my mother. Spanish, vibrant, abundant, giving, loving, all the things that he wasn't. And for a very long time, I thought that they were opposites, like black and white, Spanish and English, like black and white. And that was, I remember the day when I went, oh, it's not like black and white. So they're just two different languages. And it was a weird day. And I remember that. Anyway, I grew up in a beautiful home, but we had to wear jackets in the winter because he wouldn't put the heating on. Only when he was there. Oh,
Mm.
it's rather cold. I think I need to put the heating on. And it was just like, okay. And then to the point where my mother needed to send some letters, and he basically asked her for the money back.
Oh, wow. Wow. This is super
He
extreme.
never, fuck, he never, ever spent, he never bought a first class stamp. He sent all of his letters second class.
Wow. Not even the mail got to fly first class.
And my mother was like, what the fuck do you want to do with your money? I mean, you're going to die at some point. It's just going to go with you. It's like, anyway, um, this one time we were in the restaurant and he decided he was going to tip the waiter, right? And he didn't, I don't know what happened, but he realized that he tipped the waiter instead of 50 francs, he tipped him 500.
That was the universe being like, here's a test.
And my mother saw what was coming and she went, don't you dare go and ask for that back. Fuck.
Right.
He got up and went and asked for
No.
it.
Wow, Marina.
So it was his conditioning.
But
You know,
that's
he
so
lived,
deep. I mean, like,
yeah,
I think of my own father in the similar situation. My father would be so embarrassed to ask for the money back, he wouldn't do it. He would like the
my
embarrassment
father
would
had
stop
no
him.
shame.
And yet your dad, you're just like, no, we're gonna go and do it anyway. So there's that just communicates to me sort of the intensity of the fear,
It was
right?
massive.
Yeah.
And I remember being in a session with loads of coaches.
Yeah.
Um, and sitting there going, why do I feel so desperate to earn money? And I remember sharing, that I didn't need to necessarily work, but I wanted to. And the guy was like, wow, that's such a gift. That's so amazing that you don't have to. And I was like, no, but that doesn't feel this way to me. It doesn't feel like
Mhm.
my reality. My reality feels like I'm constantly like, I need to make the money. I need to make the money. And suddenly there was this whisper, this voice that when it's not your story, it's your father's. And literally, all of that noise just
Just dump
left.
it out. Yeah.
And there was this huge amount of space in my awareness of going, well, if it wasn't my story, what is my story?
Hmm.
So there were many insights like that along the way. It wasn't just one.
Yeah.
Um, and it's been insight after insight, you know, and then there was like, another insight I had about the masculine abandoning me, and then I realized, oh my God, that's how it feels like with this wealth. It feels like it's gonna abandon me at some point.
Mhm.
Well, that's not true. So there's been a lot of insight and reflection around this for me, and I never know when it's going to show up. But you and I had a conversation before this podcast, and that conversation instigated something for me. And it was the very piece around preservation and circulation that I had not seen. But it makes sense, you know, like money's supposed to be in circulation. It's not supposed to just sit there. It's supposed to be in circulation. It's supposed to be in circulation. That's its job. And the more you circulate it, the more it has to come back to you. So
Yeah.
it's like every time you put money out, the money comes in. But I was always focusing on money going out, money going out, money going out, money going out, money going out. And somebody said to me at this workshop the other day, he's like, "Yeah, but if the money's going out, it means it has to be coming in." And I went, "Yeah." And that was the bit I wasn't looking at. I was
So
focusing
you
on
were
money out,
just
money
thinking
out, money
about
out.
the money. You were just thinking about the money coming in through your earning, but it was coming in through what it was making through your investments.
Exactly.
Okay. Got it. Yeah.
But I was constantly working, money's going out, versus going, oh no, money is coming in. Look at the investment. It's made a lot of money and it's grown in capital. Now it means I can flow it into this project or that project. But I was constantly going, money out, money out, money out. So
And
that was
just looking in
about,
one place, right? Just
yes,
sort of like have a narrow focus versus being like right? You turned around and you said it was coming from behind you, right? You sort of gestured
Yeah,
this
I
way,
mean, right.
right? It was like over there. We don't expect it to come from over there. We were like,
No,
it's
we
right
don't.
here.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And in the same way that this sort of money miracle around like the money will show up when you really sort of like anchor in your desire, that has been my money miracle is around the circulation. It's like when you let it go, it's just kind of it's like it has a boomerang effect. I'm just
It's
like, oh,
law. It's
yeah, it is
law.
law. There's a natural energetic law. And so,
And knowing that it's law is such a wonderful thing to know. I mean, I
yeah.
didn't know it was law. I just, things get banded around. Oh, that's a nice to have. Oh, it's a nice idea. But the other day I saw it as I was told it's law. It has to. It has to. It has to. So it was like going from a nice little truth and nice and fluffy, so everybody feels good about it, to actually knowing, going, no, it's law. It has to. And I was like, wow, that's so fucking cool. Everybody needs to know about this. But ultimately, what I saw too is that most women with wealth don't live that way. So, my job now, as I see it, is to help women live their experience as they have it. So, in other words, understand the law, but also enjoy it. Just fucking enjoy what you've been given. Because
Yeah.
what a shame. And my partner's that once again, humdinger. He said, "What a shame. The biggest problem here is that you're just not enjoying it." Oh, for fuck's sake, stop saying these sorts of things. They're really annoying, but they're so true. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of swearing. I'm realizing. Sorry about that.
Marina, no, it's totally allowed. And I'm just feeling right now how proud your father is of like there's this like just this beaming energy of you healing the lineage. Like you were just I'm heating up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too. Stop it. I'm gonna get
yeah.
emotional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This enjoyment feels this wow, okay.
Well, I mean, now that I'm pretty like it, yeah, and there are moments, right? I find myself going, I can go back there. Like I can go into my
Right.
little
It can like
little
pop up again, right?
spirals.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does, it does. Um, but then I kind of go, no, like let's go back to this. And the way I'm educating Leo now is I've seen that I was like my education was very much like you've got the wealth, you hand it down to the next generation. And there's a question mark. There was a question mark around that years ago when I was challenged around that. And then I've kind of journeyed more deeply with this and seen actually what is my role? What is my role as a wealth holder? What is my role to my son as a wealth holder? And I realized is to teach him how to hold his own wealth,
Mhm.
not how to spend mine.
Yes.
That's
And
for me. Now
yeah,
you
yeah,
go on. Let me impart the wisdom so that
yes,
you can go and fish.
right. Like developing that stewardship early on.
Bingo. So I had a really cool conversation with another inheritor the other day, and he said to me that his father sat him down at 11 years old and said, look, you're either not going to get anything for your birthday, or I'm going to give you 7K and I want you to invest it in something. And you're going to have to give me a presentation as to why. So I did that with Leo the other day. And he did a presentation on Bitcoin and he told me why. And I said, well, I'm not going to give you the 7K, but I'll give you a grand and you can invest it.
That's amazing. That's
So
amazing.
yeah, it's like I want him to learn because that way he won't have to go through the shit I went through, nor have to I want this to be second nature to him.
As you bring in the conversation about Leo, what I'm feeling immediately is like this piece around the maturity, right? The Empress is the mage.
Yes.
She is the mage. And so it's like moving from the sort of the right kind of like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. And then shifting into this, like this is like a divine responsibility. It's like holding your magic, right? And knowing how
Yeah,
to
that's
wait. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and that is what's possible for every woman. If it's possible for me, it's possible for her too. So this
Yeah.
is why I've moved into doing this work. And so, yeah, if anybody is, I mean, I can send you the links, la la la, but
Please, yes. How can people, what's your preferred place for people to find you?
so she can do a quiz to find out where she is on that journey from Maiden, Queen, and Empress.
Hmm.
The She Who Inherits quiz, which we can put the link in. And also, I'm going to be holding monthly salons, and I'm calling it the Velvet Lounge, where women can come, wealth holders can come and talk about certain taboo subjects around wealth, what it means to be a wealthy woman in the world, for example, what it means to her to live a wealthy life, what it means to be a legacy holder and how she wants to then. So it's really about giving her the space and time to reflect on these questions that she may not have given herself time to do so with other like-minded women.
Hmm.
And then of course, I've now created or will be inviting women into resourced, actually, it's called, which is a 6 month journey into survival into sovereignty. So she'll go through the six pieces that I mentioned before.
Yes, amazing. Brava.
Gracias. Gracias.
Thank you so much for this. Such a what an incredible conversation, like just so unique. Thank you for sharing your story and the details of this journey.
You're so welcome, Isha. And I think, often people think, oh, the rich like this, the rich like that, the wealthy like this, the wealthy like that. Well, we're people too, and we all have our journeys, right? So
Yeah,
some of us choose in this lifetime to journey with this in particular, others journey with other things. So for me,
exactly.
this has been a massive journey. And just because yeah, it's like the outer has nothing to do with the inner whatsoever in the least, like nothing, even though, I mean, it's the inner that creates the outer. So it's like, so anyway, this is why I feel really passionate about this work.
Yeah,
And it really is source led,
yeah, yeah,
which has its
absolutely.
own, as you know, dynamics. Like, tell
You
me.
again, Marina. Wonderful convo.
Love you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.